What you're about to hear is from an Epic Marathon stream at Theory Underground. This was published in an Epic Marathon stream on September 18th, 2024, and I am now finally able to release it as a standalone episode. We brought on two of our favorite audience members and fellow travelers at TU to talk about cheerleading versus cynicism and the ambiguities of the medium. Michelle Garner is one half of OG Rose. You might be familiar with her other half, Daniel. He's the very excited guy, full of inspiration and ideas. And it's like Michelle kind of evens that dynamic out with thoughtful reflection, measured humor, cutting insight, and kindness. Yeah, and Ian is awesome. And we really love both of them. And Ian's been here for quite a while now as a subscriber at TU. He uses the ongoing research seminars and courses to develop his own intellectual project and the stuff that he's writing. We're very excited to see what he's going to be presenting at TUCon towards the end of October. And we're excited to publish him in an upcoming anthology. So that's a little bit about them. If you're curious about Theory Underground, stick around until the end of the video for the PSA that I have made for you all. The PSA will give you the vibe and let you know how to get involved with the ongoing research seminars, the one-off courses, and also there's books, baby. So yeah, check it out. And I hope that you enjoy this conversation. If you find it something that stimulates thought, go ahead and share that with us down below. Thank you.
Hablar español o tener una conversación más como amplia. Hago muchos errores, muchos.
Es normal.
Sí. Yeah.
All right, you two.
Okay.
Well, welcome to stream. Welcome to the Epic Marathon live stream that is taking place on September 18th. We're pre-recording this so that Nance and I can do other stuff at one point during the stream. But we
human,
want
eat.
Yeah, be human, eat. We have people sometimes say, "Do you guys ever like take breaks when you do that?" Like, and
Never.
it's funny.
We didn't used to.
No. We work like brothers.
There was a time when we did not take any breaks. But to the people watching this right now, welcome. Hello, everybody. I'll just say a quick couple words of introduction to Ian and Michelle. Ian and Michelle have been on the subscriber side here at Theory Underground for a while. They come to the monthly Snellgrove McKerracher synthesis seminars that we do a lot of the time. Off camera, Michelle was just saying it's been a little while. She misses us. Well, but I want to just go ahead and let you both say a couple of words of introduction. And in your words of introduction, maybe say a thing or two about what it's been like to be on the community side of the live chat with Theory Underground Epic Marathon live streams, because that's kind of what we wanted this to be about, is engaging as a community member. We've brought you both on because we just love the way that you do engage. And so we'll start with Michelle and then we'll go to Ian. And yeah, I am recording.
Yeah. Awesome. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Dave, Nance, and great to speak with you too, Ian. And I think what I love about what you guys do is that there's definitely kind of like this hub type of feeling, or almost like the best way I can think of it in terms of like where me and Daniel are around is just like the idea of the diner, or like the place where people just kind of come and they talk and people mingle, and the same people tend to show up and they kind of start to know each other, know some names. But maybe you come there and you don't know a whole lot of people, but you sit around and you realize that there's something kind of that's been going on and it's going on, and you can still participate even if you haven't been around for a long time. So I think that's the vibe I get with you guys and with what you're doing, which is really cool. And it's definitely not everywhere on the internet, like I think it's quite unique and special. And I think that, another thing about being on the the side of like subscriber and engagement. I mean, I think you guys also do a really good job of like just people who are engaging, like you'll want to come and like have them on or talk with them, and that's pretty cool too. Like that doesn't always happen as well. So, or you invite people to like write for your anthologies and everything like that. Like that's super cool. So I love that. And yeah, in terms of like, it has been fascinating kind of sitting into like the chat sections sometimes of videos, because you get all sorts of funny comments and like almost esoteric kind of like, there's all these kind of things that come up in the chat that sometimes how people talk there, that's a kind of new for me, a little different for me. Sometimes a little bit more like jaded, or a little bit more, people who are theory are often super well read and amazing. They make these like allusions, and I'm just like, whoa, like I'm glad Daniel gets that. I might not always catch on, but I think that it's interesting to be there. And I mean, I find myself in that, like what I find myself doing in that space sometimes is a bit of the like, in a reductionist way, this can be good or bad, but like a little bit of the cheerleader role, like just because I like to like acknowledge what people are doing, like, cool, you like, that was great, thanks for sharing, or that was like, I do think there's something quite helpful about that. Now, obviously, maybe people don't always do that because they think it's not very genuine, or they're like, I don't like, are these real people? I've never met them. Like, I don't really know, why would I be doing that? But I don't know, it's just kind of like my default, but I don't know if it was always my default. Like I learned that a lot from Daniel, as him being a very good moderator, Daniel, my husband at OG Rose. So I think I learned that a lot from him. And sometimes, just a really random story, and I'll wrap it up at this. I remember back when we helped to like run this community space, he would just see people, and he would just be like, so for them, like he'd be like, it's you, like he would just see the person and be like, the amazing person, and like fill in their name, right? And he'd be like, thank you for being you. And he would say these things, and I was just like he said it with this one person who I thought was a cool person, but like they were just a little bit, I don't know how to put this, maybe I wasn't being very nice at the time. Hopefully I've grown and matured some, but like they just weren't like, they weren't necessarily amazing. Like they just were kind of like rude sometimes, and like kind of quiet and awkward. But like Daniel drew out the best, and like he saw the best in everybody, and he would speak to that. So one day I was just like, why do you always say that to, like, I almost got irritated. I'm like, when that guy wasn't there, I was like, why do you always say that to him? Like, are you just like making that up? Like, are you just lying? Because I mean, he's fine. Like, I'm glad he's alive, but I don't really see what you see. And he was like, well, I think it's important to see the greatest, like to see that person for who they really are. And that the fact that they have a role in this time and in this earth and in this place. And it was so cool. It's like so powerful to me when he said that. It was really humbling and heartbreaking to me that I wasn't able to extend that to that person, because I was eventually, and I was never mean to this person. It's just that I didn't get it, but then when he explained that to me, it's like I saw something, like a light bulb went off, and it was just really cool to see that, wow, he's not just like talking, he's not just talking, what's that expression? It's like you're like smoke up somebody's butt, or what's that expression?
Yeah, not just blowing.
Yeah. Like you're not, he wasn't doing that. It wasn't fake. He really meant it. And the fact that he could really mean it, and like actually draw out some really cool things about this person, who they were, not just who you want them to be, but just who they really are. And like that came out further. Like this guy started to do like more of his music stuff at our community center and all of this stuff. And like we went and saw his cat in his house, and just his name is
too many particulars. It's becoming too easy to figure out. Yeah, it was me, everybody. It was me. It was me all along.
Yeah.
It was me. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
But I think what you're getting at though. So
yeah.
Well, we'll kind of come back to it and let you both kind of elaborate on this a little bit. Nance and I will talk a little bit about our sort of. We'll kind of get into it a little bit, but we want to bring you both on to talk about what is the sort of headspace that you get into that allows you to be in a sort of like unironic, just kind of like enthusiastic, encouraging mode in a live chat. What and but also we're curious about like why people are less likely to do that specifically in certain kinds of spaces, especially the theory scene. What is it about the theory scene that makes it so that people are less likely to do that? But before we get into that, because I want Nance to actually kind of like elaborate on the question before you guys respond to it. But really quick, let's just kind of circle back around here. In introduction, though, I did forget to mention the most important thing there, which was, you did kind of bring it up, Michelle, which is that Michelle she's not just a subscriber at Theory Underground. No, she's one half of OG Rose, and that OG Rose is the thing that Daniel Garner is doing with Michelle. It's a writing project, a publishing project, but they also host discussions through the net. And so it's a very cool thing that they're doing over there. And they have their own sort of YouTube channel and podcast and everything like that. But Ian, anything that you would like to say in introduction, though, about how you got involved with Theory Underground?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think for me, I've had like a few years of just reading philosophy and theory by myself, which it gets a bit boring and also a bit confusing, right? Because, I mean, you read the text and then you go to YouTube and you watch a bunch of videos, but then you don't really have someone to bounce off with. And yeah, I mean, honestly, just like a little sad. And then, I mean, the algorithm probably, I got lucky with the algorithm because I was actually researching Nick Land, and I had the Frank Numena book, right? And I was reading it, and I was like, I get some stuff, but I wish I had someone to explain it better, right? And I actually found Mikey's class, like the intro class to Nick Land, and I watched it, and I mean, it speaks for itself, right? Like, everyone who is doubting about it, just go watch that, and you'll see the quality and like the understanding that Mikey has. I would say the same about you, Dave, like with Being on Time and Levinas. Like, you watch that class, and it's people that actually engage with the text like deeply, because they're able to explain it in a chill way, understanding, like, but they don't shy away from like tearing with the difficult concepts and like breaking it down. And yeah, like, and they are also, I think, both you and Mikey, which are the ones that I've taken the most classes. They don't shy away of saying like, I don't know, or this is something that I'm still thinking about, or stuff like that, right? So I watched the first class, and I was like, I really like it. I bought the whole class, and then I was like, oh, this sounds like really cool. And I became a subscriber, and I was actually like happily surprised to see like how much of a community, in this case you, Dave, are like fostering and building. And also, I think sometimes that goes unseen because it's just there, but that takes like so much work to like do the scheduling, sending emails, hosting the platform, like doing those things. So I feel like when someone is that committed to do that work, it's because they are taking it seriously. And then it just, I think the people there are also like in the, let's say, behind the YouTube side, like more on the subscribers, super cool people too, who, for me, the key component is that people are willing to read. Like, they are just not there to talk, right? Like, I think the concept of the exegetical reading was something that really like locked me in, because that's, I mean, that is what you want to do, right? Like, having a space where you can do the reading and then bounce off ideas. And I also think that that's something amazing about the community, that there are some texts that everyone is kind of like willing to read, and you have like a sharing ground, right? Like I think one day I was saying that I see it like kind of like a playground that you can go play, and all the kids are cool. Like, no one is not sharing the toys or like being like, look at my toy, it's much better than yours. Like, it's like, now, like, here, have a like play with it, right?
Right.
So that was really good. Like, an example, it's I think it was Luis and Anne. We were doing some readings about the understanding media, super helpful. I also think, I also think that just reading in a group, it's so much better than reading alone. Because what you say too in some streams, like, I mean, you're gonna read, you might as well do it in a group. And also, I feel like I'm outsourcing my work of reading to Nance, which has a beautiful voice. Because I mean, I get to do like some house chores and stuff like that while I'm listening to a cool book, and that's super helpful.
Yeah, reading can be very isolating, and that's kind of what I'm hearing that you were saying, is that, you know, that time that you spent in theory before finding Theory Underground, it was was good, but also isolating at a certain level. So with that said, then I guess I'll just want to turn to Nance. How did this conversation come up? What is it that we are trying to get at? And when you were talking about it before we started recording, you had mentioned the non-dupe. Could you kind of explain what that is, what you're getting at there, and how this relates to the conversation we're hoping to have here?
So first off, the non-dupe, that's jargon that it bothers the crap out of me when people use jargon. So like there's that kid who like always puts on, like I always think back to like the bully in school who's like, he's really sad, he's poor, his parents probably abuse him, he's probably hungry, he probably smells, he has poor hygiene. Like he's coming from this like this position of lack and like obvious lacking, and so he puts on a front to kind of overcompensate for that. So he constructs a persona of like, not only am I not lacking, I'm better than everyone else. I am the best. And so that's the non-dupe. Like basically you're putting on to compensate for a perceived lack or an actual lack. But you're not tarrying with the lack. It's putting it's putting a Band-Aid on it, and you can't actually make any progress or whatever.
And
so you're stifling yourself.
And the not duped part just gets at the, I'm not duped by, I'm not playing the game because I understand that this person doesn't really have it all figured out. I understand that this may be a person lecturing. The non-duped person is the person who's sitting back going, you don't know what you're talking about or whatever.
Yeah, and that comes into to this conversation, this question, whatever, because the conversation is like parasociality in the medium itself, and we're having conversations. We're trying to educate ourselves, but also educate others, and do this kind of like co-creation via the internet. And when Dave and I were talking the other day, like the notion of like the parasocial relationship, it's gone too far in probably both directions. People have taken it too far with forming these parasocial bonds with their favorite content creators, and so people have also gone too far in the other direction by being, no, I'm the non-duped. I maintain a distance. I've constructed a wall. But you miss out when you're not genuinely engaging with whatever content it is. I guess like in general, the internet, but we're specifically talking about theory, education, and developing a milieu. So if we're all sitting back and maintaining this distance, and not allowing ourselves to like just get in and start dancing, go get on the dance floor and start dancing to the music that's being played. That's how you get the most out of the spaces we, and the royal we, of course, create. But when you're putting on and you're like, oh yes, I understand, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't allow myself to comment, engage, get excited, participate, because it's all fake. And sure, it's all fake in a sense, but
so what would you say, Michelle? Would you say that people, so because what we're basically getting at is like what you called the cheerleader role. Why do you think it is that that's less, it's less something you will see, it's less common in theory spaces?
Yeah, so I mean, I loved what everybody shared, and that was a good explication there, Nance, on like the non-duped person. So thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I think like I'm thinking about two things right now. The first thing is that maybe it does show up, it's just in this like radically different form. Like I was saying before, people tend to have these comments that are like, if you're not in the world of theory, it can feel like, what are they saying? I'm not really sure what they're saying, to be honest. Like, it's just like, and you have to really kind of get creative with sometimes how you're responding or engaging with those types of comments. But for that person, like, they might be quite excited and to be there and like to be engaging at all, you know? So that's the one thing, to kind of be charitable. But but I think on that level of I think it's a challenging line to tote of like not just being this kind of naive like enthusiast, right, who's just like doting on the person and you're amazing and you're the man or you're the girl or whatever, but still being kind and like and encouraging, but I think that is why it should really ultimately be about the engagement itself, like acknowledging, bringing up something it made you think about, because that's fun, that's interesting in terms of it being a dance and playing, like to Ian's point about like playing, is that it's honestly, like I find it to be fun as that person doing that. Like I don't always do it like amazingly, and sometimes you just might not engage as much because like your hands are in a soapy water washing dishes, like you just might not, like, you know what I mean. But I think that's what I would say. I think that it's I don't know, I think it's just maybe we do have this challenging time of toting that line, with again being supportive but not being like naively all in on or like showing too much support. I don't know, to me I don't think about it in terms of like showing too much support, because I'm just like, what would that even look like, unless you're just being naive, right? And like you're just kind of being like fangirling, and then you're not really taking into consideration that like this is also a human being, we're all not perfect, but they're also amazing and they're sharing something really cool that they're working really hard at, and that's incredible. So I don't know, I think that's probably a big part of it is like the almost like too cool for school, right? Like we're gonna just try to stay cool, like don't get too excited or too involved. I don't know if it's like a little bit of a non-committal thing at the background or something like that, but I do think that from the maybe a affirmative to the affirmative is when you can do it in a way that's just actually engaging and acknowledging, it can get fun because you're like, this is what that's making me think of, and then maybe people kind of piggyback off of that in the chat. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Yeah.
And I think that the way it came up and the reason that we were like, let's bring Michelle and Ian on was because I was like, Nancy, you notice that like, you're like the only person who ever really like just came in the chat and would be like, yeah, let's fucking go, And then I was like, well, actually, like, I think Ian and Michelle kind of are like that. They kind of bring that energy sometimes. And I was like, why is that so rare here? Like, but in other live chats and everywhere else on the internet, you do see it. I don't know. What does this make you think of, Ian? You're not, I mean, it's obviously like, I don't know. It seems like you're engaging genuinely. Like you're not, and it's not awkward or weird for you, but like, why is that?
No, it is all fake. I'm just,
yeah.
No, I mean, I think people who read a lot of philosophy and theory, I feel like we sometimes tend to isolate ourselves, right? And just on the basis of you need time to read that stuff. And I also think that it comes with insecurity because you are dealing or dipping your toes into difficult, and not difficult that it's like, oh my God, it's so hard. But it's just difficult because it's like learning a new language or like learning to skate or something like that. Like you're not gonna do a backflip on your first attempt, right? But I think there is like a courage of saying and like actually saying like commitment to no, I think this is important and I think my time is well spent here. So it's cool to see people who seem to share that. And I mean, yeah, encouraging that, I think it's cool. And I also think like sometimes, I don't know why, like with more like quote unquote like intellectual activities, like you gotta have your cards closer to your chest, no? When I'm like, no, like I see a ton of people. I mean, I don't know. Like I think about, and I feel like also, and maybe this is like a male thing, but less encouragement as with like between like guys, and it's like, why? Like, why can't we just be like, hey, that was really cool, or like, I really like that idea because I legit like for example, like they say that I don't know who is, I forget the name, but like the autism like seen through Lacan. I'm like
what through
that
Lacan?
is the autism,
autism.
autism. Like I'm like, that's a cool. Like I would love to read a book about that. Now that I know a little bit more about Lacan, like that's a cool idea. Or like Mikey's book, for example. Like I read that book, his new book, and I'm like, bro, that's a book I want to see at Barnes and Noble. Like that's it. Like, you know, or like the Timenergy book. Like I read the book, I know about the book. It's a cool book. Like why am I not gonna say it, right? Because I feel like sometimes that happens. Like you read something cool, but you're like, but I'm not gonna say it because I didn't write it, or like there's a bit of that jealousy. I don't know. Like it's just like, yeah, why not encouraging things that you already like, you know? So,
Yo, what's up, listener or viewer?
Yo.
How you doing?
So I noticed you sitting there, watching this video.
Yep.
And yeah, you're listening. You're paying attention. You're definitely not hearing everything we're saying, though.
Yep. Nope, definitely not. You're not taking notes.
Yeah, take notes, dude. What are you doing?
Hey, you know what? If you want to be passive and just enjoy this content while multitasking, that's what we do as well. Everyone does that most of the time. We very rarely switch into this more active mode, and that's fine. That's fine because you're kind of absorbing this content as you go through your life, and that's great. But if you're going to do that, then we just have a little request of you. What's our little request, Nance?
We want you to do the algorithm things. We want you to hit the button, the thumbs up, or the thumbs down. Hit the subscribe button. You could even hit the bell so you get notified when there's an epic marathon stream.
Yep.
Or one of the dope ass interviews. We just finished a dope ass interview. But do the things to help train your algorithm to actually give you content that you prefer. And at least here we are aware of the problem. We are aware that we're all infected with the algorithm, and we're trying to do something about it. So while you can like maintain a cynical distance of like not being an enthusiastic vocal supporter,
right?
Doing those actions actually, first of all, it helps the channel. It helps Theory Underground. But it helps your algorithm too. You will get less kind of shitty clickbait React content if you train your algorithm to give you what you prefer. I mean, you're already here. You're already watching this.
Yeah. So enthusiastic, unironic, genuine support might be a little too much for some of you who are way too cool for that kind of thing. But you can at least hit the little like button, and then we'll say we're even, okay?
There we go. You owe us nothing now.
Yeah, let's get back to it. It's interesting though, because I actually when I started the recording, you two were still speaking a little Spanish, and I was going to ask at the end of this, is that okay if I actually keep that in? But I cool, because I first of all, we have a lot of admiration for people who are multilingual or people who are practicing that. But it seems very different in my experience. The people, it is awkward to try to speak in a different language, and you're going to fail, and you're going to sound different. But in my experience with language learning communities, there's a lot more just like, oh my God, you tried. And like this, it's nobody who tries to engage in another language in a live chat in a multilingualism stream is ever going to be trying to outsmart one another. But like there is like this sort of like, oh, I'm trying to look smarter than the people, and there's like this sort of weird like one-upmanship thing that I'm not going to say only happens in the world of theory, but it certainly does happen there. So yeah, what were you going to say there, Michelle?
Oh, well, I didn't mean to cut in. I think that's a really great point, and I love that. I was just thinking, like, as Ian was talking about it, like, I was trying to think of other live streams, like, that I've witnessed or whatever. Like, I can't say that I've participated in a whole lot of other ones, or even witnessed a lot of other ones. But a lot of times I think it's also more challenging because, and maybe this is just a very basic point, but if you've got like if you've got two politicians, or you've got, like, it's some pageant or something like this, like you're rooting for somebody. Like you're like, yeah, like that's my guy, that's my girl. Like you're all about that. And I think like men seem to demonstrate that sometimes more in sports like activities, right? Like, yeah, like they're patting each other on the back and they're like, yeah, let's go. You know, it's so hard to like get to channel. It's difficult because it's like, who's the team? Who's the, like the whole point of theory is to complexify all of that. It's not to have some sort of like, here's what's right, here's what's wrong, here's our good team and our bad team. So it's very difficult to, I think, have that same sort of energy in a right way, because though there's something that I guess humans seem to need about that energy, it can be quite problematic too, right? Tribalism, blah, 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 right? But we obviously seem to need that kind of camaraderie and that sort of support and like encouragement of like, yes, like that was so good, like that was awesome, like you did a great job, or like, and I love that again, I just really love that point of like, you tried, like, yes, you know, when you try to read like Don Quixote in Spanish, one time I tried to read like this section in a Spanish class in Spain, and I was just like, I don't know what happened, try to read it, like it was a disaster, and everyone was just like and I was just like, I hate myself right now. But yeah, it's okay. You know, it is that effort of like putting the effort. And I don't know, maybe it's just like, I'm guessing with languages, everybody knows how challenging it is and how much you have to kind of make a fool of yourself sometimes to learn another language. And I don't know if that vulnerability is just more inherent in the nature of learning languages, but that like literally theory is like learning other languages. It is. But I think we forget that because it doesn't sound like we're all using English, so, or whatever the language is. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I think that's huge. I think like we're all atomized, and the tendencies of the medium again is to sit back and consume your content, like whatever it is, like all the bread tubers, all the left tubers, all the talking heads, they're all always experts. And we're always in this passive mode of just like sitting back, being the passive learner. So yeah, I think that's a huge point. And then also this maybe spirit of I don't want to say competition, I don't want to say esprit de corps, but maybe it's like a shared endeavor, like when you can recognize that you are engaged in a struggle collectively with a group of others, and with other kind of theory aligned spaces. It's the expert, but I guess I don't know, here at Theory Underground, the struggle is like the content or the subject matter itself. That's what we're struggling against. We're not struggling against like the left writ large, the right writ large. Yeah, I don't know.
It would be so much easier if it was, though. Yeah. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should pick an other to hate, and we could start.
I've been thinking that Theory Underground, it's kind of like fulfilling the premise of Illich, the learning webs.
Illich's learning
and I
webs,
think
yeah.
that's, you know, like that is something that it's very exciting to see happening in the internet, because I think it's prime for sharing skills in that way, right? Like non-credential, just you can come in and out. Some people may stick around, and I think that concept is super cool. Like what Brian was saying about it, really like super interesting. And I think the more you can lean into that, like learning webs situation, pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So the one thing also just like came to mind really quick. Yeah, I think that's great about the learning webs, and I think it's awesome to see that actually developing. I was going to say just as a quick point, when you were saying, Dave, about people like one-upping each other, or like almost like should like or you know, so sort of like I want to show or prove that I know, or I have some sort of like expertise, or you know, I can make a super smart esoteric comment too, sort of thing. Like, it's funny just to get meta. I mean, even in this conversation, you know, how the first thing I talked about, like I brought up at the end of that, like something anecdotal. And I'll be honest, it's hard for me to like, I can even get self-conscious about that. Like, I'm just going off and telling some story from the past that taught me something. It's not theory. Like, there's no fancy name, there's no fancy terms. And I can feel like, I'll be honest, like I can almost feel like I need to apologize, or like not apologize, but you know, it's almost like oh, was that okay? Like, was that appropriate for a theory conversation, you know? And I wonder if that sometimes comes up in chat dynamics too, because as soon as somebody's like, maybe has a couple great, like, machine gun fire with like some really sexy points with some sexy names, you know, then you're like, well, I was just going to bring up this time that my, you know, cat was stuck in a tree, and like, you know, like, you're like, I was just going to bring up something that related to my life, and now I feel really like stupid to say that, so I'm just not going to say anything, you know what I mean? So I do wonder if that plays out sometimes too in the chat.
If I was married to Daniel, I would definitely always feel that way. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, I would be second guessing myself every second, like, constantly.
I think that he's got that great dynamic of seeing the best in people. So he's like, he's a wonder.
He does. Yeah. He is. Well, and that's the thing is like, I feel like Daniel is sort of this great example of a person who's a genius, very, very synthetic and eclectic at the same time, like wide ranging and deep, but also dishing out affirmation. I'll just say, like, he's a cheerleader. He's definitely a cheerleader. And if he hasn't said something nice about you, it's because you haven't met him yet. And it's like, and it's almost like, it's like, we're not like that at Theory Underground. Like we're very like, we're maybe it's like we're erring on the wrong side or whatever, but it's like, we're like, no, man, like, we're garbage. Like we might take turns like getting up and like, okay, I've read this a lot. Now I'm going to try my best to like really like break it down. But we're not out here telling people, amazing, you talked. It's like, in fact, we're like, how about everyone stop talking? Like, for a while, I'll listen to Mikey talk. Maybe 5 hours. Can we listen to him talk for 5 hours? Keep your question to 30 seconds, please. And it's like, it is like we're bending the bow in a sort of sense. And I think that has positives with it, but also obvious negatives. If the negative is one that makes people feel, the positive would be, it's a chance for people to say, I don't have to engage. I don't have to have a conversation. I don't have to try to perform anything. I can literally just listen and take notes for a while and learn from someone who spent 20 years on something. But the negative is that it potentially fosters this sort of, oh, what do I know? You know, this sort of, maybe, I don't know, Nance, you perform it all the time. And so it's like, which is like, oh, what do I know? Who am I to talk? And it's like, we're all like, stop that, Nance. But also in a sort of sense, we all do want to model that as well. There is some kind of a sweet spot. I don't know if you guys have something you might want to say to that. I'm going to step out of the room and take care of something while I listen to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that, something I also like about like the subscription and like the back end of Theory Underground is that awareness that we are like all learning, and we know that there is some people in the community that they just had like so much more time with the text, right? And I think that, like, I don't know if it's like humbleness or just like self-awareness or something like that. It is helpful because what Dave was saying about Mikey, right? Like, he can go for 5 hours talking about like Žižek or Lacan or Baudelaire or whatever. But I think that is really helpful because that makes me hopeful, or it actually like excites me, right? Like, I'm like, well, if I spend that much time reading the text and now that I can slipstream him, I'm gonna learn so much. So it's not like I feel sad or I feel ashamed that I don't know. It's more like, no, I just want to like get behind him, listen, slipstream, and go read the text, and then ask some questions, right? Or maybe like write a piece and like share it. So I think that is something that is working really well. That it's good. I mean, I think it's also fair to have a self-awareness of how much time you spend doing the reading and like actually tearing with the text and like doing all the readings to contrast and so on. Because I feel like sometimes with theory or like also with art, for example, like drawing or stuff like that, sometimes it's hard to really assess like the skill of the other. And some people just want to show off or something like that. like drawing, for example, it's kind of easier to see because it's like some people don't know how to draw like hands, right? And they tell you like, well, I don't draw hands because it's not part of my concept. I'm like, bro, well, like then you don't like, do you actually know how to draw? So I think, but being aware of like, hey, I don't know how to draw hands, but that's perfectly fine. But I'm trying, right? Like, and here's my not very good hand. Can you help me get it better? I think that like awareness in a community is always good because I think also like the people who are better in this case at drawing hands are like willing to share how to draw a good hand. No, they're not, like no one is trying to. No, I'm gonna keep my secrets. I'm never gonna tell you that you gotta do this angle instead of this one. Like so, but yeah, I think like the self awareness is fostered in the community that allows for just like an easy conversation, an easy flow where there is not a need of showing off or like who can say the most terms or like things like that.
I think on that, like the with Theory Underground, there is a final product. There's a directionality. So there is this kind of positive upwards pressure. But it's not the end product, the end goal is like these living persistent conversations and getting somewhere. And so there's anthologies that are going to come out, and in the courses there's times when there's pressure to present or there's pressure to come on a live stream and talk to the entire internet about something that you may be expected to be the quote unquote expert about or whatever. So there always is a kind of upward pressure to not perform in the, performative sense, but actually like perform and be excellent. Like we have high standards. And I think with like other spaces, the product is like right now is like immediately, I am talking to be the expert. So it is going to be the case like, oh, your hands suck, you can't draw hands, like shut up, go away. And you're going to be like, well, I can't talk. But like this interesting dynamic of like, no, you are excellent. You might kind of suck right now, but future you is going to be excellent because you're a part of this and you're participating and you're doing this give and take. So yeah, you are already an expert. You just might not be it yet. I don't know. It's a weird dynamic. It's a positive peer pressure. But also it is only made up of the people that come and participate. So
yeah. I feel like that. I mean, it's like that's the ideal, but the reality a lot of the time is we're all either working at this or burnt out on working at this. And we actually don't ever know where people are at because we don't have the sort of accountability structures of like a classroom or university. There's no transcript. There's no CV. There's no letter of recommendation. There's no big graduation day and now you have a PhD. And what we don't, and all of that stuff, all that pomp and ceremony, all that, the grading criteria, the actual grades, the honors, the ceremonies, or the potential failure. A's and B's and C's and D's on a transcript don't actually tell me whether you were serious about your studies, because you could have been seriously studying a subject matter. You just weren't cramming for the exam, right? You could have been going harder than everyone else, but you weren't going for the exam. But at least the A does show me that you were pretty serious about something, right? Well, part of the issue is like, we're all in this like ambiguous space where it's like most of the time, most of what we do, it doesn't show. And there's just no grade. There is no transcript. So it's kind of like if the transcript's not good. In some ways, it's actually bad, right? In a lot of ways, we've problematized it. I mean, I was waving around deschooling society while Ian was talking about Illich, and it's like, yeah, but there's at least something to go off of. Whereas it's like here on the internet, it's like, I think we're very self-conscious, you know, and in the good sense, humble, self-aware. You know, Ian was saying that Ian and Nance were just laying out the good sense. But of course, it becomes vice when that self-awareness or humility becomes like some kind of like an inferiority complex. You start beating yourself up, and you're not, and the work that you have put in doesn't go acknowledged because people can't see it. And so it's like there is, and then of course, like if you come out and you're like, oh yes, in the live chat, oh yes, very interesting point that you made there. I can relate that to this thing that I read. You see here on this page, this person said this thing. See, I am thinking and referring to this stuff that I've read. If you were to do that, then if you have any self-awareness, then you are also aware that that there's a performance here. And then most people are going to think that performance is one where you're just trying to look smart. You're just trying to look like a know-it-all. You might be trying to outsmart the other people in the room. And so it becomes weird. Whereas like if it was like a sports game kind of community, the person who's ripped and can actually like do great at that, it kind of speaks for itself. That person doesn't have to use words. And so it's just kind of like the athlete usually has a kind of confidence that comes from like proof of concept is in the body and how I carry myself. Whereas when it comes to the intellect, it's not obvious. You do have to say things for that to be conveyed. But also if you say things, there's a lot of ways where saying it actually undermines it anyway. And I think that we're all aware of that sort of problem, and there's really nothing we could do about it. We don't know what to do about it.
I mean, to that, I think that Mikey's example that he was using about the medium with the I love you, that it's very different when you put it in Facebook or like on a love letter or stuff like that. I think like for people who are into these things like theory and stuff like that, like for example, like on a stream live on YouTube, I'm not gonna put a comment that it's like elaborated or like actually writing like a paragraph and stuff like that. I don't think the medium allows for that. One, if you're streaming, you are not checking the chat. You can't. It's distracting.
Yep.
And second, it's just gonna get lost in the chat. So I feel like in a stream live, you can say, I don't know, like emojis and like, or I agree with that point, or like that made me thought of this. So I think like the media literacy may be important for contextualize like the where you are like quote unquote like showing your smartness or like stuff like that, right? Like yeah, like if you have a writing workshop, then I mean yeah, then you have time to actually give like a good reasonable critique and talk with the person one-on-one. Also it's not public, like because I mean I will not feel comfortable like critiquing someone in public, right? Like, and especially if they're not asking for it, like so yeah, I guess like also how you use the medium may like having that media literacy may help.
I want to just say something about that really quick. Like recently in the premiere of a video, a person who's not a regular from what I can tell was throughout the several hours of this premiere constantly bringing it back to trying to figure out where everyone stood on feminism, and then trying to complexify feminism and trying to talk about where they were and where they are, and doing like multi-clausal syllogistic breakdown. Let's get down to basics and let's talk about facts and how we interpret them. And it was like, I was like, this is like not really the topic. Like you are really doing like your own thing here. And one of the people was like taking the bait and like it was engaging and was like, And I had said something about maybe it's not the place. And then this person's like, well, come on, Dave. I finally I'm getting this person. And then I was like, oh my God, whatever. You guys do whatever you got to do. But then that person came into the comments later after the premiere was over and said a whole bunch of stuff. It was like a full on essay. And then at the end of it was like, and by the way, whoever was moderating that stream should hang his head in shame. Talking about me, because I'd kind of put like a wet blanket on the conversation. And I was just like, I am not against people having critical conversations or being able to go deep, but also I care about this a lot. And if you think that this was the space to do that, if you think that the live stream is the space for that kind of a conversation, I'm not sure you get the difference in the medium. And I think I said something along those lines, and it's nothing against the person. I don't know how to properly convey these kinds of things, but I think that Ian probably just conveyed it just about as well as a person can. It really is about, there's different mediums for different kinds of engagement. And it really is like the live chat. It really is only meant for yay or boo. It's like it kind of is only made for those.
Also
two
for
things.
donations, definitely donations. You can send stickers.
Yeah, donations.
Dude, when I was a kid, I had a potty mouth. I still have a potty mouth, but I had to moderate it because I would be at church, or I would be with my grandma, or I would be in spaces where I couldn't let my freak flag fly. And it's just, it's moderation. It's media literacy. It's media awareness. It's self-awareness. And when like on the internet, on the screen, everything is flattened out into this uniform space of like nothing matters. Nothing is real. There's no movement. Nothing is actually happening because we sit back all day. And I mean, I'm super guilty of it. I used to be miserable, and I would consume leftist content, anarchist audiobooks and anarchist podcasts, but I'd go to work and go through the motions, and I would satisfy that like ennui, that like feeling of everything is horrible by consuming this content, but nothing is changing. But like once you have that self-awareness and be like, no, I'm the one that needs to change. The way I'm approaching the world, the way I'm approaching all the different media, and physical spaces are mediums as well. Like I need to exercise some agency here and have some self-awareness and not blow up the spot. And I think often people tend to fetishize age, but there is something to be said for life experience. So if we're having a lot of young people, or even not so young people, but people who haven't like had life experience, we're probably going to get a lot more people that don't have that self-awareness, that don't have that media literacy because they take it all for granted. So maturity, not necessarily tied to numerical age, but maturity tied to like self-awareness and in embodied awareness, I think is huge. I was just
going to say, man, in that example, I think that person said something about being 52 or 60 or something like that. And I think that it is actually a thing where I've had maybe in the last year, like 5 or 6 people try to engage in this most serious way possible in the live chats this way. And it's like, dude, I get it. You're like 50 plus, but the medium is different. Like we have anthologies for that kind of engagement. This space is just sadly not fitted to it, but also like, so when I just want to elaborate for anybody listening for the first time who hasn't read Marshall McLuhan or taken the critical media theory seminar at Theory Underground. But when Ian and Nance are saying media and medium literacy, you can all, add to this however you like, but part of what that means to me is like that, it's exactly what Ian alluded to when saying that Mikey used this example to get at this difference between the subjective enunciation and the enunciated subject, which is like a Lacanian idea that Žižek plays with. All you need to know about that is that, using the term "I love you" for the first time with somebody is going to have a very different meaning depending on where you said it, how you said it, right? And so texting it's like when people say that person broke up with that person through text message. What they're trying to get at is like there is like a kind of either unawareness or assholery in that action because of doing it in that medium. And someone might say, well, I would have gotten very upset if I was to do it in person. They would have heard how much I actually feel disgusted by them at this point. So of course I did it that way because it was actually more polite. Okay. But there are sort of socially perceived connotations to saying things in certain ways within the certain context, and that every medium is an environment, and that it's an extension of our actual central nervous system. And the content of the message in some cases can mean less or completely opposite things depending on what the medium is, where it was said.
I just want to jump in really quick on that. That's all really, really good and really important. And I was kind of just thinking about this a little bit as like the experiential, like the side of the person in the chat, and what is it for that person? Like, what is the purpose of that form and that form of communication and medium media. And I think like it's there's a part of it. It's almost like just nice to know that other people are there listening too. Like I get good feelings sometimes. I mean, not like I rely on it, but it's just nice when you're like, oh, cool. Like you're here too. Like we're all listening to this. And then you kind of like can have a little bit of a sense of, it's like where it's appropriate to comment while you're watching a movie. Like usually you just watch a movie, like don't touch, like we'll talk after, blah, blah, blah. But like you can kind of comment with each other a little bit. And you know, maybe it can be generative if like you kind of share things that, again, like that it made you think about, or maybe you start to engage a little bit, like where it becomes like, this is why this is resonating with me, or this is why I'm still listening to this live stream or whatever. So yeah, I think there's something kind of neat about that. And then if like people fade out, you're like, oh, they must not be around anymore. Like I'm just here, which is fine. Or maybe there's a bunch of people there, but maybe you don't know a whole lot of people. So you might kind of meet some of those, you know, whatever their YouTube names are. And then later you realize like, oh, that's that person. Like it's a funny thing that happens on the internet these days. But I was thinking about live stream chats and how, yeah, I think that's a really great point, that it's really seems to be more like a, like the kind of more brief comments, or like maybe more being, you know, commenting to the people internally, like not with the people who the live stream, like, because again, like it is distracting, like Ian said, for people who are doing the live stream to be like then having to attend to all those little live stream chats and stuff like that, unless you're literally doing it with like, hey guys, let's chat, show me your questions, you know. So I think, yeah, it's really interesting. And I was thinking a little bit about the Zoom chat function as well. I know it's very different and it's not public, it's just for the Zoom people, but I find that to be probably one of the most like, I don't know, where I may engage the most actually in terms of a chat function, because the other people can kind of take their time reading it if they want, and they can respond if they want to. And it's kind of like, you can still use it to sort of affirm, be like, oh yeah, that was a really good point. Or, oh yeah, like that made me think of this thing. Like, and you can even send an article link out. Like, so I think it's a nice chat area. I think sometimes maybe people don't really know what to do with the live, with some of the other chat areas, whether it's on a a premiere or like a live stream. Like those are all kind of different in nature. But I do feel like what I get out of the live streams is like, this is an event day and this is kind of cool. And like, who else is like there? It does have a kind of social, almost, I don't want to say party, but there is a little bit of an element where it feels that way, where like it's an event and like this is cool, and like it almost feels like it's some holiday, and like who else is kind of around getting, you know, some of the cookies and, you know, a drink or whatever. And it's an interesting feeling. I'm fascinated by like the phenomenology of what those different chat spaces actually feel like as the person in them, you know. So yeah.
We could really use a piece in our CMT or Theorizing the Underground anthologies about the phenomenology of the medium across the spaces. That's 100%. To me, like Discord's a really weird one. It's a weird one, because we don't want to all be chatty, just talking about whatever all the time, because most of us are busy. It then becomes like a very dead space, yet you know there are eyeballs in there. And right now it's like Ian is the only person who gives any positive sign of having seen anything ever to the point where it's like, it makes me think about aborting mission and just deleting the entire forum side of everything at Theory Underground, because Ian's like, I post all this stuff all the time, and then Ian's like the only person. He'll use like an emoji to show that he saw it and is like, yes, great. And it's like, oh, and I told Ian, I was like, thank you for doing that. It actually makes a difference. I was like, you could give people a crash course maybe on doing that kind of stuff, because it's like, I'm not saying I want like tons of people hyping up everything all the time, obviously. And I don't want a bunch of like, we're not trying to have a bunch of One Direction fan girls here, like, way every time we do anything, but some kind of affirmation.
I mean, it would be cool though.
yeah, maybe they'd have to be older, but I do want to shout out some of the people who, I guess they all are older now anyway, but no, I want to do a shout out for DeathCon and Ben Zur and Weird Solowski and Martin Heidegger and Evan Wells, for all of you guys saying hi when you do drop by. Really do appreciate that. Thank you. Did my audio just cut out? The soundboard. It was supposed to go pew 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 pew. All right, there we go. All right, yeah. So shout out to all you guys, and then everyone else who I'm forgetting, Mandy as well. Thank you for when you do drop by, saying hi, and just anything like that. It really does make a difference, and I just wanted to recognize you guys doing that, and just say, it does something. It does something for us to know that there's someone there. It's like, comment, subscribe. When people do this whole like, hello, for the algorithm, it's like, how about instead of doing it for the algorithm, you just like, hey, I'm here. Cool. Like, it's gotten to the point where Anne's always like, who's Weird Solowski again? Like, do we know who Weird Solowski is? Like, is that somebody who's in the Zoom calls? I was like, no, that's just somebody who just is always in the chat. And she goes, oh, cool. Yeah, I like Weird Solowski. It's like, yeah, we do like Weird Solowski. Well, why? Well,
me too.
You do too? Yeah, they're great people. But with that, I guess we're about to close this thing out. Any final thoughts, everybody?
I mean, I guess if you're on the YouTube side, on the live stream, definitely try to, if you feel like the content is good and the things that are being spoken are like attractive to you, check the back side, because I feel like sometimes there is a hesitancy of joining a community because it is kind of weird, like 100%, like it looks cultish, right? But I feel like, I mean, it is cool. Like, if you're actually someone who wants to read the text and like engage with the actual like books, you won't be disappointed. So it's cool.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys so much for talking about this. I think it's really neat. Like, one of my favorite things is that like when theory spaces talk about like the actual dynamics of the spaces, or like what we actually engage with through technologies. And I think you guys do a great job of like actually talking about interesting things like that aren't like they're related to theory, but they're not directly theory, but they do incorporate a lot of actually theory ideas. And it's neat because I think we all feel like the dynamics, tensions, weirdness, fun of it, and like, but we don't always talk about it explicitly. So it's fun to talk about that phenomenological experience of these places and these forums and forms, and it's great. So I really enjoyed it, and it's also left me with a lot more to think about. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming on.
And we'll be right back after this.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of letting others read and think on their behalf, slipstreaming our way into an understanding of a situation that short-circuits the deadlocks of our moment.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation: theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. What that has meant in the last year is traveling across the United States, into Canada, and then all over Europe to promote our books, courses, and ideas related to time energy and underground theory. You've been reading Underground Theory.
I'm a publisher and an editor. I run and review books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture this scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working-class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Timenergy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first I had to get freed from wage labor, which was achieved this year. That's right. Thanks to my monthly seminar subscribers, I was able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. Now I'm announcing the next big phase of the plan, which is the Mikey Down Seminar. What monthly subscribers to the Mikey Seminar are paying for is a survey of philosophy, including deep dives into Žižek, Land, Lacan, Baudrillard, Bataille, Lyotard, and ultimately the whole history of philosophy.
We're trying to build like this ongoing seminar, right? And that's what I really like about this thing, where, you know, if I'm teaching a main text, that's something I got to focus on. I got to really, but the seminar thing, we can do this stuff all the time where we dive deeper into concepts, we dive deeper into certain, you know, sections of books or whatever, and we can really do this nuanced stuff.
I think that there's probably no better way for us to accelerate our learning in these areas than by slipstreaming Mikey. And that has been my belief for years and years and years now. It's official. You're able to help out. You're able to get involved. You're able to benefit directly from liberating him from wage labor. Get on it right now. Do it. Just go. Stop what you're doing. Go click the button. Subscribe. This is what you do. Subscribe to him. If you're already signed up for the ongoing Theory Underground seminars, then that's the ones that I do with my wife, Anne. Though that's getting an upgrade, which means that I will be doing one session per month that is just me, and then I will also be doing the ones with Anne, which are a crash course in sociology, anthropology, the social sciences, and ultimately Marx, Heidegger, Levinas, Bourdieu, imminently critiquing pop psychology, sociology, self-help, and ultimately the doxa of our time. But if you would like to be a subscriber to both Mikey's seminar and the seminar that the Snellgrove McKerrachers are doing, then the best way is to become a tier 4 subscriber, or you can be a tier 2 subscriber to each of us. The reason this matters is because tier 2 is like pretty much the best bang for your buck. It gives you huge discounts on all of the courses that we do. But if you can't afford it, tier 4 is amazing because it gives you tier 3 access at both Mikey's seminar and ours.
And finally, not everybody has time to be part of these ongoing research seminars, and they just want to fund the paid content for the YouTube and podcast. And so thank you so much to our patrons over at Patreon. They're the ones funding all the free stuff. So big thank you to Bert, Marilyn, Carl, Sahil, Zozandra, Nikolai, Darian, Tyler, and Mandeep, and all the other wonderful patron people. Patreon people. And thank you to all the other wonderful Patreon people. Thank you so much to all of you patrons, and also to the special subscribers and the paying subscribers. Oh my god, it's just so awkward. Thank you, Patreon. Patrons, thank you. Oh, okay. And to all the other wonderful patrons, thank you so much, all you patrons. And also a special thanks to the subscribers on the YouTube side, as well as the paying subscribers over at Substack. Why can't we do this? God, you guys, just thank you. Thank you, everyone, for making this bullshit possible. Thank you to the subscribers. You did so good. Thanks, guys.